Hey guys, Jack Spirko here. I'm calling this video a pattern in the COVID numbers no one's talking about that everybody should be, or maybe I'll change it. This is actually the second time I'm doing this video, so it's not as impressive of me not knowing the numbers before I did it. I found a pattern though today. I didn't know this existed. This is a COVID-19 tab at the Weather Channel. And so this is all public information. It's not anything I've made up. It's not anything I have any ability to manipulate. And I happened to notice this morning when I was checking our weather that was there, and I clicked on it, and it showed me, if I put in Fort Worth, Texas, it showed me my personal county, Tarrant County, 806 cases, 25 deaths. And I noticed that this pattern seemed to not do the crazy doubling everybody says of every 3 days. The hysteria, it's doubling every 3 days. The world's going to be infected in 35. Calm down. In fact, it seemed like it kind of stepped up, and flattened. And I started looking at other places. And as I did that, I started to notice, like I'll go to San Francisco, California here, that they all look very similar. In spite of the fact that everybody has different times that these things started, in spite of the fact that every state and every municipality has different restrictions, while the numbers vary, the patterns all look the same, and the patterns all show not just a flattening of the curve, but basically the peak is over, and we're heading into decline. And you might slide that a week in timing throughout the country, but if you think about it, places like Seattle, Washington, this all started way earlier, and the restrictions went in place way earlier than the rest of the country. You would think that the pattern would be vastly different. It's not. So what I did, I looked up, just according to Wikipedia, the largest 15 cities, and as you'll see, that there's a bit of variance. And like I said, you can slide a few days forward and back, but the pattern's almost identical everywhere, and it almost gets boring if we look at it long enough and pretend we're like in Romper Room counting together. So this is L.A. County, 9,480 cases, largest city in America by population, 326 deaths. And again, people were screaming every 3 days the case count's doubling. Now, something to understand here, a lot of these graphs that you're looking at, like if I jump over here to this world meter site that everybody is big on, and go into United States, the graphs you're seeing that look an awful lot like this down here are new cases per day. So this is the new cases per day in the United States. You can see a very flat plateau of about a week with this one variance dropping off, and then symmetrical, very symmetrical. If we were doing a technical analysis here of stocks, you'd see a pretty symmetrical decline right here in new cases. But that's new cases. We go back over here. This is cumulative. So if you look, there's 4,578 cases there. There's 5,300 cases. That's total without removing recoveries. Remember, a lot of people have recovered more than they tend to report. They don't seem to have a big focus on getting that number accurate right now. So let's start on this earliest day in the graph, which is the 28th of March. And how long does it take for this roughly 1,800 cases to get to 3,600 and double? Well, there's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, not quite there, but let's call it there. Let's call it there. So instead of every 3 days, it was 4 in L.A. County, and you'll see it'll be 4 to 5 in most places. Now we need to get to 7,500. Once we got to this point around April the 1st, how long were most of these places taking to do this? Let's go. We need to get about 7,500. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right around 8 days. And then we would need to get to about 15,000, and if we run out the month here of what we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're not even halfway there. Now, here's what I found really interesting when I did this in my own state. Did you see the graph change? It did, and it's pretty significant if you look right at it and watch it. There's L.A. County. There's the state of California. Of course, the scale changes, but The pattern looks very... Now we're looking at the entire state of California. Let's do our little exercise again, like we're in Romper Room. 5,500, so we need to get to about 11,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 days. Now we need to get to 24,000 cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9. And I found in most of these states, again, you can slide your pattern a little forward or backward by about a week to a half a week, that once we hit that, everything's flat or heading downhill from there on new cases per day. And that's just California. Now, California is a little bit different than Chicago, which is the reason we're going there next. It's the second largest city in the United States, and we notice we have more cases where there's more people and higher population density. But there's what Chicago looks like. Again, this is cumulative, not new cases. If that's new cases every day, that looks alarming. But if that's cumulative, you have kind of a slow grow and a leveling off. Let's see our doubling in Chicago, which started a little later than California, but not that much. So we need to get about 5,200. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's somewhere between 4 and 5 days. Let's go from here. We need 11,000. I think it's going to be about 7 or 8 days to get to 11,000. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 days. 7 to 8 days. We'll look at the state of Illinois. Notice how similar the pattern looks to Chicago, even though Chicago represents 15,000 of 22,000 total cases. Even though we move out to rural areas, it still looks very similar. Let's take a look at that pattern again. We're not going to count all of them while you get bored. 3,400. So we need to get to just under 7,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Took about 5 to 6 days. Let's go here, 8,900. And now we need to get to, about 18,000 cases? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right between 7 and 8. And that's this pattern. We go from, a quick doubling of 3 to 4 days to about 5 days. That's what we're seeing in this pattern. To about 7 to 8 days it takes to double. And it begins to peter out. And again, that's reinforced by the totality of the United States over here in this symmetrical curve following Farr's law, which every epidemic since Farr came up with this over 200 years ago has followed. We're just going to ignore Farr's law, I guess. Okay, let's go back here. Let's take another look. Let's go. I'm just going to pull a couple of these up without maybe counting them all. You can count them for yourself if you want to. Go do this yourself. Houston, Texas. Again, Houston, Texas is the biggest outbreak in Texas. It's accounting for a little less than 25% of the entire state of Texas. And Texas is a big state. And if we take other counties right around Harris County that are part of the Houston area, you're looking at almost half the cases through the state of Texas are in that area. But there's the same pattern. And here we go. Let's start on the 29th with this one. So 445 cases. We need to get just under 1,000. About 950. How many days do you think it's going to take, class? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're right about there. Okay, so now we need to get to about 2,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 again. But now we need to get to 4,000 to double again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're not there yet. You want to bet it's going to hit around the 8th day, and Houston is in a growth mode. Houston got hit with a lot of traffic out of New Orleans late in the game. Houston is a little bit of an outlier, but they're just about 5 days out in this pattern from us. This is very, very evident. And if we look at the entire state of Texas, we end up with a pattern that's a little bit more to the typical, but, Houston drags it a little bit toward this, 5 day further out pattern. And if we go somewhere here where we can look at the draw on resources, and we look at, this is New York, and they're showing peak resource use around April 8th, which is about 4 days ago, 6 days ago. If we change this to Texas, see these resources, though independently gathered, seem to vet each other out. We're saying we're still 15 days away from our peak resource use in the hospital. Now, let me tell you something about peak resources in the hospital. Resources peak in the hospital after the epidemic has already started to go down the other side, because it takes about 4 to 6 days for someone to present with symptoms and progress enough to have to go in the hospital. So you take this back 10 days and you're looking at the projected peak, and I'm telling you, you're seeing it faster than that if we look at these numbers here. And the way that they're hitting this is what happens with these epidemics. Everybody starts freaking out, doing the math. It's going to double every 3 days forever. It never works that way. It starts to hit a ceiling, and I'm sure social distancing had some impact on this, but if it had the impact that they're claiming, you wouldn't have the same pattern in almost the same time, coast to coast, north to south in the United States. You just wouldn't have it. Let's take a look at another one. Here we go. We're going to look at Phoenix. Now, that's definitely a different place with different timing than all the rest of this. So we're looking at Maricopa County in Phoenix, Arizona, and we have the same pattern. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you go in here and count, you get a 5-day double and an 8-day double, because I remember when I did it before. And you get to a point where you can look at it and say, the way that we're moving now, you're not going to see another doubling, or if you do, it'll be the absolute peak when it happens. And it will struggle to get there. And again, if we switch to the entire state of Arizona, the graph really doesn't change very much, does it? Let's look at another one here. Now, don't you think all these smart people they have on TV every night should be telling you this? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Don't you think they should be pointing this out? Don't you think they should be pointing this out with optimism? Where have we seen that? Remember, this is not new cases. This is cumulative. Let's look at the entire state of Pennsylvania. You see the same pattern? You see the same pattern? You see where it just kind of just runs out of steam up here? Everybody's turning right about the same time. Everybody shouldn't turn right about the same time. Everybody shouldn't be turning within a week of each other if everything that they're telling you is indeed the case. We have vastly different ways this has been handled. Bexar County, San Antonio, Texas, same pattern, and trust me, it's about 5 to 6 days to double and about 8 days to double the second time, and peters out. And again, state of Texas just has that, again, scale changes because there's more, but the pattern remains consistent. Again, if it was all social distancing, if it was all restrictions, you would have massive variance where you have massive variances in what was supposed to be when the virus really started to take hold and when the restrictions went in place and how severe the restrictions were. But if we look at Dallas, Texas, again, it mimics the state of Texas and it mimics everything else in the state as far as the other cities and counties, large enough size. To break this, I found what you can do. You can't do it by going to New York City. New York City follows the same pattern. Okay, New York, I forgot New York, didn't I? That's the biggest city. Right? Somehow I left that one off. That was, well, at least we're supposed to go first. So you'd think New York would break it. You think New York would break it because they have so many and because it's the epicenter, and it doesn't. Let's look at New York. Well, let's go here. On the 28th, we have 5,200 cases. How long does it take to double and get to 10,000 cases, class? What do you think? 5, 6 days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 days it took. Why? Because New York City got so much of it, they're moving through it faster. The fact that they've had less success in controlling the spread, and the fact that it's probably been there a lot, it's probably been there since January, and it just took that long for it to get big enough to see how much of it was. Now, how long does it take to get to 20,000 in New York? New York City, not the whole state. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think the last day here, we should leave this last one off. Make this your last day because I don't think they've updated the information for today yet. How could they? So look here. Here's your flattening right here. How are you going to get to 20,000 in New York City, with your 3-day doubling hysteria? You're not. You're going to struggle to get there, if at all. And it'll tail, like if we were actually looking at the active cases, it'll tail way out, but it'll rapidly come down the other side. State of New York. Come on. Where we? Do you want me to count? Do you want me to waste your time? Or do you just see the pattern there? And I'm not going to do all of these because, again, you get bored. Let me just pick something that's totally divorced from anything we've looked at so far. Jacksonville. Jacksonville's on the list. So here we go, Jacksonville. 691 cases in Duval County. Duval County, by the way, is the biggest county in the United States. Jacksonville is the largest city by area in the United States because it makes up all of Duval County. That's what I was trying to say. I only know that because I grew up there. 691 cases, just 13 deaths. Lot lower numbers, but we have the same pattern. Let's go here, 114, so we need to get to what? 228? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somewhere between 4 and 5. You think maybe it's 7 or 8 days to double the second time? You think? Let's just check together. 271. We need to get to like 580, 560, something like that. 560, right? Let's say that. So we got to get to 560. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So somewhere around day 7, we actually double. 7 to 8 days in the second doubling cycle, and it just gets longer and longer from there, and as it peters out. Same thing, and then we look at the entire state of Florida. Yeah, the scale changes, but the pattern is very consistent. Let's look at Columbus, Ohio. That's a place nobody really talks about much, but it is apparently the 14th largest city in the country by population. Have we seen this pattern before? Let's get our initial doubling rate starting on the 28th, because that's just when the graph goes back to. Confirmed cases, 222. We need 444. You want to bet it's 4 or 5 days? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll call it 5. So we need about 880. You want to bet it's about 7 or 8 days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Call it 8, 850. It's still a little shallow, but 9 is a little high. 880, so right in between 8 and 9 days. And it begins to peter out. And it's everywhere. And you can go, again, I can't make this stuff up. It's all on the Weather Channel. You will find some things that kind of break it a little bit, but if you kind of adjust for about just 1 week of being able to slide this, and it'd be great if we could go back. Oh, look at this. We can go back. I didn't know that at the time. I'll have to reevaluate that and see if I can even make my case a little stronger. I didn't realize that earlier, that I could slide back there because I was looking at it on my phone instead of a computer screen. So that's interesting too. I don't want to bore you by starting way back here, because I think you have to get into a point where you actually get case numbers that actually start to climb, and then you see that it just, like all these epidemics do, they eventually blow themselves out. And my contention is, it's not that we've done nothing with lockdowns and social distancing. We haven't done anywhere near as much as we thought we did. You have a massive number of cases in New York City because you have 8 million people living in 302 square miles. That's why you have a bunch of cases all showing up there at one time. But even then, the pattern looks the same as the Dallas-Fort Worth pattern, where we have 7 million people living in like 11,000 square miles. The pattern's the same and the numbers are different. That's all that happened. And it would have been no matter what we did. We put some flattening in the curve. We probably made it last longer than it needed to. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done anything. I'm not saying that maybe we should have taken some measures to protect people. I'm just saying that this concept that every place is different and these people did this and this worked better than that. In the end, the virus did what the virus is going to do based on the demographics of the population. Your variances in death rate and in symptomatic cases are probably more a function of diet, nutrition, age of population, obesity rates, etc., than they are of any other factor, from the fact that this state was more Nazi-like in their restriction of movement than this other state over here. Oklahoma's done almost nothing. Oklahoma is the major outlier in the United States. If there's a I not know how to spell Oklahoma. It's okay, L.A., right? Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. All right. Anyway, I got distracted there. Oklahoma, is the state that is Sweden in the United States. They've done nothing. They've done nothing. Almost no restrictions whatsoever. You see a familiar pattern here? Let's look at them. Let's start at 107 cases here. Let's go till we double it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right? Was I said 100? So about 4 days to double. 4 days to double. You want to bet it's about 7 or 8 to double again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days to double again. And how long do you think it's going to take now to double yet again when you've only grown by about 50, not even 50 cases over the last 4 or 5 days? Why did Oklahoma City only grow by that much? Let's look at the entire state of Oklahoma. The entire state of Oklahoma has done almost no restrictions whatsoever. Here we go, 377 cases, so we need to get to what, 740, 750 cases roughly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somewhere between 4 and 5. Let's go again. Let's double. We need to get to just under 1,800 cases there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, to 8. Are you amazed? Does this look like trickery? Does this look like I'm creating some sort of an illusion here? Or does this just look like this is the pattern this damn thing has in our country no matter what we do, and the variances by geography are more about the people themselves and how they are hit by it than it is based on how much any freaking governor Meemaw put restrictions on your movement? That's all I'm saying here. And I want you to take a look at this for yourself, and I want you to see that the total trend is this thing is petering out, which every single coronavirus outbreak has followed this same pattern. Almost every epidemic has followed this same pattern symmetrically, and it looks like to me that we went way overboard on restriction, way overboard on fear, and what we could have done is protected the most vulnerable as best we could, put in things like in certain areas people had to wear masks, reduce head count, things like that, and we probably wouldn't have changed this much at all. This may go down as the single biggest blunder in the history of the United States on shutting things down as tightly as we did. Because what we did is we reacted in fear instead of actually listening to real experts. The people that are in your government are not the real experts. We need to be getting advice from as many people as possible who are not at anybody's payroll and who specialize their entire life on dealing with these situations. Most of those people have been telling us that this entire lockdown idea was the wrong answer from the very beginning. Before we even did it, they said, don't do it. Now, travel restrictions, I think, would have made sense. Once it's in, let it play through. Protecting the vulnerable, etc., mask wearing, sanitation, etc., but shutting down the entire economy for 2 months just seems like a really stupid thing, because it doesn't look like, whether you're in Oklahoma where they basically said we're not playing that game, or if you're at the place that's been on restriction for damn near ever, the only reason you get more is you got more people there in a higher population density. It doesn't look like you steered this pattern from New York City, and New York State, going back to Oklahoma City. I'm sorry, it doesn't look like you did the square root of F all to me. It doesn't look like you changed. Look at the state of Oklahoma versus the state of New York. You've accomplished nothing. You can say there's less cases, but there's a hell of a lot less people with a hell of a lot less population density. The pattern of the virus outbreak and petering out of it on the day count is almost identical. There you go. Share this one with your family and friends, folks. I might just be a redneck hippie duck farmer, but I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and I can see patterns. So can you.